Okay, so good morning, everybody. It is Jillian. I'm extremely pleased that Netflix is posting those exposés on stars of the past and stars that have ended their career or trying to resurge their career through whatever means. Like Pamela Anderson, um, like resurfacing the Anna Nicole Smith story, because you hear so many different stories, you hear so many different perspectives on it. But when you had the background that I have, when you watch the official narrative that comes out like on Netflix, there are clues that I actually pick up on. And watching that yesterday, the Anna Nicole special, it was like, okay, she came out of Texas. Her mom was a cop. Her mom died actually of cancer a couple of years ago. Her mom was a cop. They lived in a middle class home, not upper middle class, not lower middle class. She wasn't like super poor, but, and her mom, Anna Nicole was born in 1967. So she would have been around that time that I'm sure more experiments were done. Trauma-based programming, I'm telling you, it was pretty big. To how large was the project, who's to say, but I'll say that Anna Nicole Smith was programmed. She was groomed for this, and it was like she had to make up stories in order for her to justify her behavior, because that's what came out of the end of the movie, was when her brother, who's still alive, was saying that she never was beaten as a child. Really, she never had a bad childhood. She was precocious, but she was never beaten. But she hated her mom for a lot of reasons. She really, I had the same issues with my own mother, and I'm sure Jodi Arias had the same issues with her mother. And so I'm seeing patterns here. I'm like, holy shit, was Virgie one of those that were part of the program that trauma-based her child at a baby? So you don't remember stuff, but you then come out super fucking sexual and coming out like a sex bomb, like Anna Nicole Smith did. But instead of killing somebody like Jodi Arias, or, ending up going through whatever Pamela Anderson went through, Anna Nicole Smith did herself in with drugs. And she wanted a baby, and she did herself in with drugs, and that's how her rise to star and fall from stardom ended. And so, but I noticed the similarities, because I was precocious as a kid too, and yeah, and so it's all gonna come out. Everything's gonna come out, and we see it. Not we, but I have a platform to put it out there. And I see the patterns. Remember, I notice patterns, I study patterns. That's why the J juice and the whole reverse engineering people came about. It's because I know my childhood something was going on in my childhood. I don't know what it was. I knew there's some stuff going on, but I didn't have I wasn't raped as a baby, as far as I know. I wasn't raped as a child. No one came in and played with me, okay? But there was something going on in my world that I had these feelings, and and how do you explain them? And so what Anna Nicole did was she made up stories, so that way she could justify why she is the way she is, or why she was the way she was. And so, and of course it made her money, assuming that's what she said, because her mom came on at one point in an interview and saying that, well, the reason why I say this stuff and make these lies because it makes money. And she probably never was, like what she remembers, abused. But remember, undetectable mind control happens when you're a baby. And the CIA figured out how to do that with babies, with children on some level. And then they teach that to the population. And then shit comes up, and they also program people. So let me read this. Let me go back. Give me 1 second. And so watching Jodi Arias, that whole stuff, that court case, then watching the expose on Anna Nicole Smith and also Pamela Anderson. Oh yeah, the girls out there, holy shit. uh, it's so much bigger than people think. And then boys get shamed into forcing them to get married. Boys get shamed into being deadbeat. Oh, I'll tell you this. It's bad. It's bad. So parents are the gods and the children are the demigods. That's the whole Greek mythology, is that parents are like the end all be all, the all knowing. I'm the only one that's right for my kid, and no one else can tell me anything. And God forbid, anyone step in and say, hey, maybe this isn't right. And so then children are the demigods. They repeat everything that their parents do. And so the whole deadbeat mom and dads, can you blame them? Okay, so when the system programs the boys to be hypersexual with the circumcision, because that's trauma to the penis, causing them to want to go and bring up those hormones, okay, then they go and find the girls who've been sexualized by the TVs, by even parents maybe done some things to them, or there are people acting out their hormones out there, you know, in the population, grooming young girls and boys. And so now we have a hugely sexual population that then borderline then become predatory, okay? And so then when people realize this, and they realize what they were trapped into, because yeah, when you're hypersexual and you want to go have sex with everything, not everybody wears protection, not everybody, you know, takes birth control, and then out comes all these children everywhere. And you know that young people, 15, 16, 17, are not prepared to take care of a fucking child, much less even 20 or 30 in this day and age. And so deadbeat mom and dads, can you blame them? The system programmed them to procreate, but didn't train them how to take care of a child or even take care of themselves properly, forcing them either into shame or marriage or fucking child support. And then we as a society don't know how the shit works, how we're programmed, then go and shame not only the moms, but also the dads. And that's where this whole, you know, that's why people do the stuff that they do. That's why they get pigeonholed and becoming the demon that people want them to become, because of how our society's been programmed, and no one knows how they're programmed, why they're programmed that way, why we have so much rampant child abuse and rampant children everywhere because of the sexual programming in the population and on the TV, and of course in families. Mothers obviously grooming their girls to be, you know, a piece for the guys out there. But these mothers don't even know they do this, but they happen to be a piece for the men out there. Then they're single moms and they groom the girls to be the same thing. And so you have the gods and the demigods. Okay, I mean, it's so apparent. Just look all over your Facebook. And so watching this and knowing that, you know, a lot of our Gen X, you saw the 90s and the 2000s. Okay, the 80s was like, yeah, Brooke Shields types, and she was groomed by her mom. And I'm sure there was probably MK Ultra going on, or mind control, or, you know, some kind of stuff going on, trauma-based mind control. And then we have the 90s, and we had the Britney Spears of our generation. We had all the different girls that rising up, and they're musicians like River Phoenix. Remember River Phoenix and the Viper Room and all of Hollywood that are now aging out and moving off to different places. And they were victims of mind control, MK Ultra. And we have that also in the regular population going into specific industries, tech world. Maybe they're, you know, executives in their companies, and maybe they're also selling something to you out there, whether real estate, mortgage, insurance, or they're having a bunch of kids. But relative to what was offered to their town, in their town, they go in to do specific things. And then what's then the other alternative? Well, if there is nothing really to offer them as far as just advancement, because you really have to be groomed for high level shit like in academia, then it's either have a bunch of kids and then go and party, drugs, alcohol, sex, maybe some traveling every so often. But that's pretty much what's being offered when you don't have that access to intellectually getting ahead. And the system purposely did that. And so this is the thing about reverse engineering, all that stuff, is that it does take time. And so your matter what triggers will be I don't know what the fuck I said there. Okay, triggers will be everywhere. I mean, let me just do a real hard transition, but I'll tell you, triggers will be everywhere, okay? And the triggers will trigger your body, your mind, and your spirit. And that's all over. So I've had people all over my Facebook trigger the fuck out of me. Not because they intended to, because that's just what goes on. When we have frequencies such as this do what they do, and we have unresolved issues that come to surface, and if we body, mind, or spirit, it's not going to matter what the triggers are. You got to deal with them. How are you going to deal with them? And so, excuse me, what I do is I just fucking throw up on Facebook. I don't care. At this point, there's nothing to lose. I have nothing. Okay. The only thing I have really is my husband and my property, and that's it. So, I mean, I have people out there on Facebook land in the J world, but there's nothing to lose by just coming out with everything, because now you're seeing the shaping of our society, because you look at yourself and you look at what you were programmed to be and do, and you see there really wasn't much wiggle room. You had to either go this way or that way. There was nothing else. That was the programming in our society. And so the triggers will be everywhere, and it could be in therapies, it could be everywhere. So how will you deal with the triggers? And so the thing about reverse engineering your parents' parenting skills is realize why people die. No matter what, the change or evolution that are in the air, food, and water, and public health therapies, the use of remedies, developing more demons will not help anyone. And so this is part of the whole reverse engineering, is understanding even how you as a parent dealt with your symptoms and triggers, and then what you teach your children on how to deal with their symptoms and triggers, and also the sexual programming, because that is so huge right now, is the sexual programming in girls and boys, in everybody. And that does lead to depopulation. That does lead to symptoms that come up, and then how people deal with them. They deal with them with remedies, surgeries, pills, powder supplements, and detoxes, and of course cannabis, which is huge. And so when you're being sexualized as a population, the symptoms are going to come up. And so I'm telling you, the system has said to us that at some point we're gonna have to deal with this. And how will you deal with it? Will there be reparations for this? I doubt there'll be reparations, but there will be some kind of expose about it in the future. But right now, everything is just coming to surface, because it's not a coincidence that my shit's coming up. Paris Hilton has her memoirs. Other people have their memoirs come up, or shit come up, or they're in court cases against somebody else, triggering their stuff. The shit comes out on Netflix with people's, issues that were rising and falling stars in the media. And yeah, we're at the end of the programming train. The programming started like in the 1900s, 30s, 40s. And it redoubled its efforts through the 1950s and 60s and 70s and 80s. And it pinnacled right in the 90s, 2000s. And now we're seeing the fallout from it. We're seeing people's lifestyles. And we're putting that shit together. Some of us are. Some people can't survive them waking up the demons. And so let me go back to what triggered me to say all this. Because someone said about, stop blaming your parents. You're the one that makes the choices. You're the one that's now responsible for your life. But here's the thing, what you have to understand, parents, okay? You have instilled in your kids how to deal with pain. You've instilled and told them how to deal with stress and pressure. And they've watched you throughout your whole life deal with shit. Whether it's bringing a mercenary like a doctor, a nurse, a homeopathic, a naturopathic, or turning to alcohol and drugs and sex to deal with your issues. And so when you say to your kids, stop blaming your parents, or say to people, stop blaming your parents, now you're the one responsible for your life. Well, again, like I said before, parents do shape the way their kids react to everything. And when the kid makes a mistake or sees an outcome from the way they were taught how to deal with stuff, and then they're pissed off, like, why did it happen this way? And they're like blaming their parents. Well, shit, if mom and dad hadn't done this, they have every right to fucking blame their parents. Every fucking right to do that. Because that's what they were taught. And the outcome was not only worse, but it became irreparable, almost irreversible. Like Jodi Arias, she's in jail. Why is she in jail? Yeah, she made choices, but what were her choices based on? Her hormones, the rage, the hormones, the sex, all of that obsession to fit in, the obsession to have a job that works for her, to have a husband that, you know, will bring her whatever, I don't know, to bring her status. That's what she was taught. And so she went after that like an obsessive person, to the point where it became where she just had so much rage because it didn't happen, and he kept stringing her along, that she did stuff. Not saying that that's what she should have done, but that's the thing. Who put that rage in her? It was her parents. People react to stuff, do stuff, and they don't even know where the fuck it comes from. And so, yeah, we have every right to fucking look at what our parents have done. Once we've acknowledged that that's what our parents have done, and we can go back and see that, even the parents don't even want to acknowledge it, which is the other side of it. I think parents need to now acknowledge their fucking mistakes. But then they can move forward and make different choices once they acknowledge how they were raised and what was. And sometimes they don't remember, of course, because of trauma-based programming as a baby. And so the original post, which was like, oh, you should stop blaming your parents and da-da-da. The original post sounds like it was written by a psychotherapist. This is their disclaimer. This is what gets them the absolution to fuck with your head. Okay? So just FYI, some parents know exactly what they're doing when they're fucking with their kid. And especially with all the programming that happened in the 1960s and 70s and 80s, other parents just do shit because they were taught by their parents or the system. So you know what kind of parent or guardian you are. You know what you need to do and what you're avoiding. Okay? To people who owned the original statement and saying everyone should get over their childhood, stop blaming their parents, maybe you exemplify the following paragraphs. Maybe you are the problem. And so maybe there was no reason to apologize or own up to anything because you, parent, knew exactly what you were doing. So if you're saying that, hey, stop blaming your parents, you know, get over your childhood or some shit, or make your own choices, then you're saying that you knew exactly what you were doing. You fucked up your kid, you messed with their head, you messed with their body parts, and now you're like, hey, I'm not going to admit that I did this because I did it purposely to get a specific reaction, and now you got to own up to your choices. And so when you're saying to somebody, yeah, you know, stop blaming your parents, then you are trying to distract away from the fact that you did program your kids this way to have them react this way with the outcome of this, to the point of where they are suffering astronomically. And then you're being as cold to say, stop blaming your parents. Okay? That's what I took from it. And so maybe there is no reason for you to apologize or own up to anything, mom and dad, if you intentionally fucked with your kid's head and told them to be this way, do this way, so they come out in a specific way. No matter how much suffering will happen, like grooming your kid to be sexual for all the boys out there, putting your girls out there up on Facebook and say, here, look at my girl, who wants to take her. That's exactly what a lot of these moms do. They groom their kids to do that, and they don't think it's wrong. No, because that was done to them as a child. And that's why now they're single. And they're single moms. And I'm not trying to be mean, but that's how things get transferred from parent to child. And no one sees the mistakes in it. No one wants to go in and redirect because they don't see anything wrong, but look at their life. They've had this suffering, and they're going to pass that suffering on to their kids. All right, so everything was intentional, I guess, right? In that case, you're exactly right. Grow the fuck up, kid. That's exactly what you're saying. That you, the parent, did nothing wrong, that you have absolutely no responsibility in how your kid turned out and the suffering they're going through, and that you will never own up to your fucking mistakes. And then that cycle will repeat with the next generation. That's why we have generational cancer disease, chronic illness, suffering, and predatory and or victimhood. Because parents don't ever own up to their bullshit. So thanks for admitting that you knew exactly what you were doing and you couldn't give a shit. Anyone that adopts this statement, the original meme, knew exactly what they did to their children and will never own up because they have no intention to. It was intentional. That's what you're saying. When you say parents, kids, stop blaming your parents. That's exactly what you're saying. That you will never own up to any fucking mistake you've ever made in your life. It's just too bad your children have to recover from you, and some will not survive your parenting. So I will speak for them. F you. Not every parent is trained in behavior modification. So you seriously owe something to your kids if you fuck them up from your own bullshit. That goes for both parents, even the favorite one, because the favorite ones are even worse, but they will never admit it because, right, they want to be the good guy. They want to be the good grandma, the good grandpa, and be the one to give everything to their grandkids and just keep having that cycle repeated, right? And so, of course, the favorite one will never admit anything because she's the god and her little fucking children are the demigods. And so that's my whole point, right? Oh boy, the original post will trigger a lot of people because there are parents that will never own up to their shit. I'm saying it again. They will never own up to their shit. And at this point, they don't have to because it's not going to make a difference. Their offspring are going to have to make their own choices. At some point, yes, you do need to stop blaming your parents. However, everyone's journey is different. If parents have to use the statement, it means they knew they did something and they will never own up to it. But again, every offspring must make their own choices. And I still agree with that, but there's two sides to it. Okay? Absolutely. It's also good to acknowledge the mistakes that were made and what you did differently so you didn't repeat the same mistakes. What will you do differently so you don't repeat the same mistakes? So I think if parents acknowledge the mistakes they made, they could make a huge difference in the world. It's not necessarily they do this, but it could mean that they grew up and they don't know everything. Okay? I mean, let me tell you, basing your journey and the way you redirect on someone admitting they did something wrong is not the only way. It would help, but obviously people die. They'll never admit stuff. Like if Anna Nicole figured it out and she realized her mom did some shit and she was able to move past all of her bullshit, having her mom admit whatever, could make a difference, but having her mom die, and her having to move on is not going to make a difference in her world. So she's going to have to make different choices if she was still alive. And so just like in my world, am I going to ever have my parents say, hey, well, you're part of experiments and this and that, and we're sorry that you had to suffer so much. Would it make a difference now today? Maybe not, but the deed is done. What's done is done. Okay? But that's a scientist versus it's subject matter. It's like, science is science. They do things for a reason and they want to see the outcome. And they have nothing to apologize for. Why should they? That was the intention. But when it comes to parents listening to the system and seeing what happened with them, and now what happened to their grandparents, and now what's happening to their offspring, they have a chance to redirect. They totally do, if they can even see that they're making mistakes. But if everything's coming out great, everything is wonderful as they see it, then they won't see it as a mistake. They'll just like, okay. And then everyone just kind of does what they do and everyone's happy, but are they really, or are they suffering? Or it's hard to say. And that's the thing. So it's up to people if they are suffering to look at where that suffering came from and why. And then why do they keep anesthetizing it? Why do they believe they should die someday? Because that right there in of itself, when someone says, hey, you don't have to die from cancer, disease, chronic illness, or the aging process, and then your mom and dad said, well, you're supposed to die someday, and where do they get that from? And they have to figure that out. And then someone says, hey, yeah, for you to have a type of indefinite life and not be subject to all these surgeries and painkillers and operations and being on medications all the time, what happens? That's right there. That's a suffering that people could also look at and redirect and not have to buy into. So it doesn't always have to be someone like an Anna Nicole Smith where she's like this sex bomb with all these crazy things going on. It could be just someone that just went to college and was buying into the death process. Yeah, they have advanced degrees, but okay, you have an advanced degree, but if you're going to die someday, what was it all for? Why? Well, I mean, and so that's what I'm saying. There'd be two kinds of people in this world. There'd be those that will have to get so much done in a short amount of time because they're going to die someday, and those will get a bunch of stuff done over a long period of time because they have all the time in the world. They won't die from natural causes. And so even that notion, that knowledge could produce a suffering, because then you might have to do stuff differently and put stuff on a hiatus so you can get your life back, so that you can put that degree to some good use in the far distant future as well as at some point, in the future. But what's the point of getting all these advanced degrees and getting all these accolades for all this stuff when you're only going to die in the next maybe less than 20 years, give or take, relative to your predisposed issues? And so we do inherit our parents' behaviors and genetics, and we also have a choice. You don't even need to be a parent to acknowledge your own mistakes, that you don't know everything, and that you're open to doing things differently. But again, like I said, if parents had specific intentions, who are also scientists, were given grants to go and do experiments on their own children, they did what they did because they meant to do it. And there's nothing for them to admit that was wrong. Now you have to make a choice. So if you find yourself that you think you've been part of some experiment, and you know you came out very different than other people, even members of your own family, and your parents have died, now, okay, now you have different choices. Now you have access to different choices. And some of them will be painful because there's a lot you have to fulfill as far as potential. No matter what, honesty makes the world a better place. But if parents plan to die anyways, then they could give a shit, and they left what they left behind. So offspring, you either make the same mistakes as your parents did, or you do something different and own up to your shit, to your kids. Break the fucking spell of always passing the buck. Take some responsibility. When your kid gets old enough, you tell them every single mistake you made with them, with their father, mother, with anyone. So that way they know you are irresponsible adult who will never own up to their mistakes. And so they know that you're human. That's how you break the spell of the curses in families. But we have people that alcoholics, drug addicts, and they pass it on to their offspring, and no one ever wants to own up, say, hey, you know what, this is what I did, this is what I've done, and I'm so sorry, and I don't want you to go down this road. You have a choice here. And also, if the parent is doing that, and they're making active choices that are different, and doing things differently, imagine how that reverberates in the family genetic line. When parents stop pretending they are infallible, if your parent was never in your life, they don't owe you any explanation. So yeah, when parents stop pretending they're infallible, they can break the curse. But we have parents who think they're gods, that their shit doesn't stink, they make no mistakes, and their kid will just end up the way they end up. And they could give a crap because they're going to die anyways. That's what the system has taught, is that you're going to die anyway, so you don't have to own up to any mistakes. We'll give you the absolution in the politics, religion, science, dogmas. And that way your kid will make the same mistakes, be the same kind of person that they will go and get manipulated by the system and used and abused and then thrown away when not useful anymore. That's what, at this point, our system is advocating parents do, is have their kids be used as experiments and used and then thrown away when not useful. And so if your parent was never in your life, they don't owe you any explanation, okay? But if they were in your life and they made mistakes, they owe you every explanation. They are the ones that raised you and made the choices they made for whatever reason. Because I understand why people walk away from families. I completely fucking understand. Because they were programmed to procreate, forced into an ideology. You have to get married, you have to have kids, you have to do this. And that's the kind of stress that if you're not ready for that kind of stress and that kind of shit, people do turn to stuff. And they escape through drugs, alcohol, walking away, or escape into more sex with other people. Because that's what the system programmed into our boys and girls. And then they use both of them as weapons against each other. And then now you see the fallout. And there is suffering, tremendous suffering. Oh, my daddy wasn't around. Oh, my mommy wasn't around. Oh, this was, this happened. Oh, he was bad. He was a deadbeat dad. Oh, she was a deadbeat mom. And you see the shame. You see the predatory behavior. You see so much in our society because of what they programmed into people. You see people who are hypersexual, that they don't have any boundaries. And then they are hyper, and then they do crimes. And I'm not excusing it, but that's what the system programmed. And so they're, having to deal with that kind of shit. And they're suffering too. And so everybody's suffering because they're either a victim of someone hypersexual that don't know boundaries, or they are hypersexual with no boundaries. And everyone's at war with each other. And then we have families that are destructive to not only themselves, but people around them. And then you have to then now uncover all this shit and try to deal with it differently. And I'll tell you, people don't survive trying to deal with shit differently. Because people around them won't let them fucking do it. They won't let them survive it. They will destroy them during that process. And that's what sucks during this process of the awakening at this point right now. Okay, so so that's respecting your kids, is when you are the ones that become the honest person and change all that shit around because you were there for them. However, at some point you have to know why they made the choices they made, because you know you're an adult and they are not some godlike figure who made no mistakes. So that's the thing. At some point, you're going to figure out why your parents made the mistakes they made and why you made the same mistakes, and what you're going to do to redirect, and why they made the choices they made. And you can see from way back, like I'm watching Paramount on my Paramount streaming service, America in Color, and going back all the way to the 1900s, 1920s. So you just go all the way back to the great grandparents. What was instilled into them, and what was instilled into your parents and your great grandparents and parents, and da da da. And now what? Are you instilling the same bullshit today? And so this is, we're in a great awakening process here. And so, your parents, grandparents, whatever, are humans just like you, and they don't know everything. When parents do that, when they actually own up to their bullshit, the spell and the curses are broken in families. Maybe people don't have to die to escape responsibility. Maybe that's why people have to be told they should die, because many people are escaping responsibility of what they brought into the world and what they did. The system gives people absolution, so they never take responsibility. Time to break the spell. That's the whole thing with living indefinitely and the immortality, is you break in the spell of just saying, who cares how my kids turn out, because I'm going to die anyways. I'm going to go out with a bang and I could give a fuck. And then you have grandkids are suffering. You have children that are suffering and offspring that are suffering. And the parents are like, yeah, whatever, fuck it, who cares? And they just, they have no intention of breaking the spell of the curse, because at this point, it's just too late for them. But that's the selfishness of parents. Even though they intend to pass away, they could still say, you know what, I've made mistakes, Johnny, Billy, Susie. I hope you don't make the same mistake with your kids. But that's not going to happen, because remember, parents are told that they are infallible. Parents are told that they do no wrong. And everyone around them says, yeah, it's okay not to own up to your shit and the distractions. I know for a fact, anytime someone has a kid, they are automatically an expert in parenting, and they do no wrong. And all of a sudden, they become a saint and a god. That was the curse. We made parents gods, and that's why we have so much bullshit in our society. Every offspring has every right to blame their parents for nature and nurture, and also take personal responsibility for their choices they make in the future, but also acknowledge the mistakes of the past. And it would be helpful if the parents would acknowledge it. Obviously, many parents will not acknowledge it, but that's the reason why curses stay in families, because we have parents who think they do no wrong again. And so, but if parents don't give a shit to break the curse, unless the kid is fucking strong, the curse will continue, which was the whole point of the system, making sure that parents never take full responsibility for the mistakes they've made. And sometimes the mistakes that get carried forward did come from the grandparents. No one wants to talk about this, because most people out there are parents, and are they ready to own up to the bullshit? But if they are oblivious, well, that's also intentional. Someone else takes care of their bullshit. Someone else takes the fall. It's always somebody else's fault. That's why you were given all the different things to be afraid of. The V's, the air, food, water, the GMO, the climate change, because now, as the climate's shifting and people's memories are coming up, now you have someone to blame. You never have to blame yourself, right? Because no, you do no wrong. It's always somebody else's fault. Always somebody else's fault, but never ever your fault. Never ever your parents' fault. Never ever your grandparents' fault. And so when you're always shifting the blame to over there, then you're always going to then make the same mistakes with your kids, with yourself, with your grandkids. And that's how the system can get rid of people who are undesirable, is when they don't give them the access to actually look within to figure out how to change things, because they don't want you to fucking change. They want to keep exploiting your genetic line until you finally break the spell. And so, somebody else's fault, generational obliviousness. Don't mind me, and this is what I'm saying to myself, I'm working through shit. The world needs to see a different perspective, not just theirs. Not everyone is a spoiled brat. Okay, some people legitimately went through some bullshit. And so anytime a parent says, don't blame your parents, you make your own choices, they intentionally did some shit and will never own up to it, ever, 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 ever. And so then, yeah, so that right there is admittance that the mother and the father made mistakes, and they'll never own up to it, and they will just say, hey, kid, don't blame me. You make your own choices. And on some level, it's true, but on some level, that's the admittance of the parent who fucked up and will never admit it. And so, I'm telling you, the world will be different when parents figure out that listening to all the professionals on one end was okay on one end because they didn't know certain things, but on the other end, it was a double-edged sword. They didn't know when to stop listening to the professionals. And so they took it overboard to the point of destruction to their family and to their own genetic line. At what point do you make personal decisions and take personal responsibility? At what point do you do that, parents? But again, if you've been so screwed up by your own parents, and you've been so brainwashed by your parents to only listen to professionals on every single bit, never ever look at what you could do differently, then that was the intention. That was the slavery. That was slavery built into that genetic line. And yeah, your genetic line will be used and abused and thrown away when not useful anymore. At your own hand, at your own choice. But there is another side to this, that you don't have to go down that road. And so the whole J world is reverse engineering all that bullshit that you were told. And so what did I say? Reverse engineering your parents' parenting skills, and realize why people die. No matter what, the change or evolution that are in the air, food, and water, public health therapies, the use of remedies, developing more demons will not help anyone. The fact that you feel stuff means that your body must take on substance and release demons without taking on more demons on top of what you already have. You've inherited demons. Anytime you go into a crowd of people, you pick up demons. Anytime you participate in massive consumption of alcohol and drugs and sex with different people, you invite demons. When you feel the demons or dreams about them, the act of trying to get rid of them and forcing them out will work against you. Symptoms are the demons screaming they're on their way out the door. Reverse engineering parenting means that you don't try to stop the demons from leaving using remedies, surgeries, and other types of healing mechanisms. Not only do you make them angrier by doing that, but you also cause them to metastasize and turn into cancer, disease, and chronic illness. So what do? You feed them, you open your system, you face the army inside your body, and you build up yourself without destroying yourself. When you hire mercenaries that are not the ones living your life, when you hire mercenaries, they are not the ones living your life. When you hire mercenaries, such as the medical and holistic system and devices, you just told your body that you're not strong enough and that the demons will eventually destroy you because the mercenaries make the demons stronger. And that's the thing. Anytime you employ or deploy someone else to take care of your body, your mind, your spirit, or somebody else to take care of your kids on so many levels, you're saying that you're not strong enough to take care of what you've produced in the world. You're not strong enough to take care of your own body, mind, and spirit. And yeah, the system and the demons out there, whoever they are, will find a way to worm their way in and exploit the shit out of you. And it's happening already. And people are suffering astronomically. And they're bringing in mercenaries. And they're drowning themselves in alcohol, drugs, and sex. And that was the intention. As these frequencies become more and more frequent and higher energy, causing more instability, people are going to turn to more mercenaries to destroy themselves and their own genetic line. And so I had to talk about the whole parenting stuff, because I've had that where someone told me, don't blame your parents, own up to your childhood, or own up to yourself, or whatever. I don't know what the fuck. But yeah, that right there, it triggered the fuck out of me when someone says that, because there are people out there that legitimately had gone through some shit because of science experiments by their own parents. And then those science experiments and those parents also influence the rest of the population to do the same thing. And then it's programmed through the TV, programmed through the professionals that hold the licenses. And so then you have now everybody out there, parents doing some atrocious shit to their own kids. And it means taking them to the doctors all the time, causing atrophy to their own system, not able to deal with any kind of stress, little bit of suffering, and of course shoving them out there on Facebook, showing, hey, look how cute my girl is, look how cute my boy is, look how cute and beautiful they are, hanging them out for the highest bidder. And that was done to the parents too at some point. And you're seeing that repeat. I mean, it's everything is in plain sight. Everything. That's why you see Mark Zuckerberg and Priscilla Chan black out the faces of their kids, because they know that's exactly what goes on, is that parents exploit their children, the beauty, sexualizing them at a very young age. And so, yeah, we're seeing shit being repeated all over the place. So now you know that yes, the sexualizing of America is now obvious. Just look at your Facebook, watch it, you'll see. Maybe you'll do something different. All right, bye.